Imagine standing on the deck of a wooden ship, watching a horizon choked by 333 enemy vessels. You have exactly 13. Your king has ordered you to abandon the sea. Your men are paralyzed by terror. Your previous successor has just seen your entire navy annihilated. In this moment, most men would surrender to the inevitable. But Admiral Yi Sun-sin was not most men. He looked at the impossible odds and told his king, "I still have 12 ships."
What followed was not just a battle, but the greatest naval miracle in human history. This is the story of the immortal admiral, a man who never lost a ship to the enemy, never lost a battle, and saved a nation that had turned its back on him. To understand the legend, we must go back to 1545, to a Seoul neighborhood struggling under the weight of political ruin. Yi Sun-sin was born into a family of fallen nobility. His grandfather had been purged from the royal court, leaving the family in poverty. Young Yi was initially a scholar, training in the Confucian classics, but at 28 he made a radical choice. He abandoned his books for the bow and the sword. It was a late start for a warrior, and his path was far from easy.
During his military examination, Yi fell from his horse and broke his leg. While others might have surrendered to the pain, Yi crawled to a nearby willow tree, wrapped his leg in its bark, remounted, and finished the test. He failed that day, but the sheer force of his will caught the eyes of his superiors.
He finally passed at 32 and was sent to the freezing northern borders to fight the Jurchen tribes. It was here that Yi's brilliance first flickered. He designed a trap that captured the Jurchen leader, proving that he was a master of the environment and a student of psychology. But his integrity was his greatest liability. He refused to participate in the rampant corruption of the Joseon military. When a superior officer tried to promote a friend unfairly, Yi blocked it. When a general tried to use army resources for personal gain, Yi reported him.
This honesty earned him a trail of powerful enemies who would haunt him for the rest of his life. He was stripped of his rank multiple times, once even forced to serve as a common soldier, but he never complained. He simply waited for the storm he knew was coming.
That storm was Toyotomi Hideyoshi. The man who had unified Japan now turned his eyes toward Ming China, and Joseon Korea sat directly in his path. In 1592, the Imjin War began. 700 Japanese ships carrying an army of veterans seasoned by decades of civil war slammed into the Korean coast. The Joseon land defenses crumbled within weeks. Seoul fell. The king fled to the northern border. It seemed Korea would be erased from the map.
But Hideyoshi had made one fatal mistake. He had not accounted for the man stationed at the left Jola province naval base. Yi Sun-sin had spent the year prior to the invasion obsessively preparing. While the rest of the nation lived in denial, Yi was fortifying harbors and training sailors.
He was refining a secret weapon that would change the face of naval warfare, the Gyeobukson, or the turtle ship. This was a galley with a roof covered in iron spikes to prevent boarding, a dragon-shaped head that spewed clouds of sulfurous smoke, and cannons bristling from every side.
When the war began, Yi didn't wait for orders, he moved. In his first engagement at Okpo, he destroyed 26 Japanese ships without losing a single one of his own. At the Battle of Sacheon, he debuted the turtle ship, driving it directly into the heart of the Japanese formation like a battering ram. The Japanese, whose naval strategy relied heavily on grappling and boarding, found themselves helpless. The pinnacle of his early brilliance came at the Battle of Hansan Island. Yi utilized a tactic known as the crane wing formation. He baited the Japanese fleet into open water using a small detachment, then suddenly fanned his main fleet out into a crescent shape, surrounding the enemy. It was an oceanic slaughter. In a single afternoon, Yi broke the back of the Japanese naval supply line. Without food and reinforcements from the sea, the Japanese land invasion stalled. But as Yi's fame grew, so did the jealousy of the royal court. King Senjo, a man defined by insecurity, began to fear Yi's influence more than the Japanese. In 1597, the Japanese set a trap. They sent a double agent to the Korean court with false information. The king ordered Yi to attack. Yi, knowing the waters were treacherous and the information was a lie, refused the order to protect his men. Yi Sun-sin was arrested, dragged to Seoul in chains, and brutally tortured. He was nearly executed for treason. He was stripped of his rank once again and forced to serve as a common soldier. In his place, the king appointed Won Gyun. In a single disastrous battle at Chilcheolyang, Won Gyun led the entire Korean navy into a trap. Nearly every ship was sunk. The navy Yi had spent years building was gone in a day.
In a panic, the king reinstated Yi to the rank of admiral, but it was a hollow title. When Yi arrived at the coast, he found a broken remnant, 12 ships and a few hundred traumatized sailors. The Japanese had over 300 ships ready to finish the job.
The king sent a letter to Yi telling him to disband the navy and join the land forces. Yi's response is etched into the soul of Korean history. "Your Majesty, I still have 12 ships. As long as I am alive, the enemy will never be masters of the West Sea." This led to the Battle of Mingyang. Yi chose the Mingyang Strait, a narrow channel with terrifyingly powerful tidal currents that change direction every few hours. On the morning of the battle, Yi's flagship fought alone, holding the entire Japanese vanguard at bay. When the tide turned, the Japanese ships began to collide with one another in the churning water. Yi saw his moment and signaled his other ships to join the fray. The Japanese believed Yi was a god of the sea. They retreated in total chaos. The war dragged on for another year. In 1598, Toyotomi Hideyoshi died, and the Japanese began a full-scale withdrawal. Yi Sun-sin knew that if they returned home intact, they would only return in another generation. He intercepted the retreating fleet at the Noryang Strait. The Battle of Noryang was a nighttime engagement involving over 500 ships in total. As the sun began to rise, Yi stood on the deck of his flagship, beating a war drum to encourage his men as they pressed the final attack. In the heat of the smoke and the thunder of the guns, a stray Japanese bullet found its mark, striking Yi in the chest. As he lay dying on the deck, he whispered his final command: "The battle is at its height. Do not let my death be known." His nephew put on Yi's armor and continued to beat the war drum. The sailors fought on, believing their admiral was still leading them. The Japanese were decimated. It was only after the victory was secured that the men learned their commander was gone. The legacy of Yi Sun-sin is unparalleled. Admiral Togo Heihachiro, the Japanese hero of the Battle of Tsushima, once said that while he might be compared to Nelson, he was not even worthy to be the servant of Yi Sun-sin.
He was a man who was betrayed by his king, tortured by his country, and left to die in a hopeless war, yet he chose to save that country anyway. He remains the ultimate symbol of the immortal admiral. Subscribe.